All right, everyone, we are moving on into the train wheel. That's what we're going to create next. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, so for this particular one, again, I'm looking at the wheel. I'm seeing, oops, here's kind of the dimensions for it. I'm seeing that it looks cylindrical, probably revolve to start. In addition, I see some similar shapes coming up, so probably use a circular pattern as well. And then at the end, we've got a little peg coming out here. This is where the linkage arm is going to connect to, so we'll build that out at the end. All right, let's start it off here. So first off, to model this in place, I'm going to go and just choose one of the holes, and I'm going to, in this particular case, this front left wheel, I'm going to start with that one. And to sketch out that shape, I'm thinking I want to make sure it's right lined up to the center of that hole. Okay, so to do that, I need a new plane. I'm going to double check the size of it. So right now, that plane, I want it to sit right on this dot. And comparing that with, let's say, the bottom of the train, I can see measurements down in the bottom right. Right now it says 0.5 inches. So I'm going to create an offset plane. To do that, coming over here to plane. Right now it's on plane point. I'm going to change that to offset. And it's going to offset. The entity is going to offset from the bottom. Right now I can see this arrow is dropping it down. I want to flip it so it goes up. I can also flip the direction right there. And that offset distance, as I just said, was 0.5. All right, so there's my plane now. Hit the check mark. And let's go ahead and start drawing on that plane. Okay, so my new sketch now is going to be on this plane I just created. And looking at it from the top. Okay. So from this top view, let's go ahead and start drawing out that shape that we saw earlier. Okay, so I'm seeing it's going to be kind of along here. It's not going to quite connect to the center, so I'm going to actually keep track of that now. So the center of this, to help me do that, I think I'm going to actually create a little section view. And my new section plane is that plane I just created. So I'm going to click on that. Now that opens it up right there. Okay, hit the check mark. Go back to my top view. And as I said, I'm going to create a line, and I'm going to actually make this a construction line to help me keep track of where the center of the hole is. All right, so now I've got this line. I'm going to sketch around that. Okay, next up, it's going to start drawing out the wheel shape. And again, I'm going to draw this out kind of rough to start. If I remember correctly, let's go ahead and double check what it looks like. So got this, going to make kind of an L shape at the bottom. Have this come out. Let me double check again, come back out, follow that around. Okay, I'm intentionally kind of making the shape look kind of weird here, partly because I'm going to add the curves to this after the fact. All right, I think it's typically a little bit easier. I'm also, actually, you know what, for this part, I am going to make this a 3-point arc. So take that back. Let's go ahead and make a 3-point arc here at the top. And then notice again, as I drag this out, I want this last point to line up. Okay, a couple other things I'm going to track here. I like using this trim tool. If I'm using existing geometry, let's go and get rid of that. Also, one thing I noticed was this was not quite vertical. So I want to make sure that that is straight on, that's straight, that's straight, that's straight. Similar with the horizontal, let's go and make those horizontal as well. All right, let's come back to my shape here. I'm going to go and add some of these curves. All right, so for this, I decided to do more of a sketch fillet instead, and I'll kind of explain why shortly. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to go and add these dimensions so my shape is a little bit closer. So from the center to this top edge, if I scroll down here, let's start with this one. Okay, so this inner circle I'm seeing is a 0.28 through hole. So start with that one. So dimension from the inside edge to here, and make that a diameter. I'm going to make that 0.28. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that that's big enough to fit within that hole. Next up, scroll back up here. It's 0.25 from this top edge to the center. So again, from here to here. This was 0.25. Let's see what we got next. 0.75 to that next edge. So from here to here, this was 0.75. And from the middle to the center of that arc was 1 inch. So from here to here was 1. All right. And on further glance, it's looking like, I'm going to kind of estimate, but I believe the entire thickness is 0.25, and it looks like that entire side actually lines up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. I'm going to use vertical constraint. Let's go ahead and make sure that this lines up to that. So those, oh, let's do that here. Okay, so that's a little bit better. And then I also want to go and set the thickness. So from here to here is 0.25 is what I saw. And then from here to this edge was half of that, 0.125. All right, 0.125, 0.25, that's looking good. Have not set that radius yet. 0.125, I think it will do that by default, but let's go ahead and make sure. So diameter here, 0.125. Yep, that's set. All right, so we still got a few things where things are kind of blue. And one of the things I like to do is to check that, I'm going to start dragging things around. And what I'm noticing is everything's actually locked in place of size, but I want to make sure that this actually links to this edge. So to do that, I'll use the coincident constraint. Let's go ahead and do this point to the edge. Notice I can't click on this right now. So I'll use the project tool again to project this outer edge. It's not letting me. Let's see if I can get it from this. If I change the angle a bit, sometimes that helps. So I'm going to project that edge, look back at it from the top. And now if I go coincident from here to this edge, it'll lock everything in place. Okay. And as you may remember, I actually want these to be curved. If you looked over here, these have a nice little curves to it. And if I look at this point, it says they're all 0.0625. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to use a sketch fillet. Looking at this point right there, sketch fillet, and the way this works is from two edges. I'm going to define the size of it, 0.0625, and then I'm going to create those shapes. Okay, so I'm going to do that for all of these, 0.0625, hit the check. From here to here, 0.0625, and then from here to here also. All right, and there's my wheel shape. I believe I got all that correct. So I'll hit the check on the sketch, and we're going to go and revolve that. Revolve this entire thing. The revolve axis is the middle point there, and it's going to spin that thing around. Again, notice it's adding right now. We want that to be new, so it's its own part. Hit the check. Looking pretty good. All right, I'm going to turn off the section view at this point. Now we've got a wheel kind of set up. And let's take the next look at things. All right, next up, I'm going to create the little holes. And I'm noticing that they're 15 degrees, 30 degrees wide here. And the entire thing looks like we got a couple radiuses. One is 0.375, one is 0.625. All right, so to do this, I'm going to create a new sketch on the inside face. Okay, so now I'm going to look at it straight on here. So to help me out, I'm actually going to create a couple of construction lines. I like to do it this way, LQ. I'm going to start from the middle, got a construction line that's totally horizontal like this. And then next up, I'm going to create another construction line. I'm going to have L selected, Q to make it a construction line. It's going to make one like that. And personally, just to kind of help me stay organized, I'm going to create one more construction line like this. And you'll kind of see what I'm doing in a second. So dimension, first off, I'm going to make this and this 15 degrees. That's going to represent, if I look back here, this angle right there. The next one's going to be 30, and I'm seeing that all of them are going to span 30 degrees. Come back over here, dimension from here to here. Let's make that one 30. All right, so using these is going to help me create those arcs. All right, so next up, I can either make this a full circle, that's one way to do it, or use a 3-point arc, depends on how you want to approach this. Let's go and do a 3-point arc for this case. So my 3-point arc is going to connect from here to here, and the center point, Okay, I'm going to kind of just generally place it for now. I'm noticing this center actually needs to coincide with the middle there. So let's go and do that. Coincident, this point to the center. Next up, I'm going to make sure it has the right dimension. So if I drag this out, the radius is what's going to determine that final point. So for this outer one, 0.625, let's go ahead and do that. Dimension here, this one is 0.625. And then I'm going to do one more 3-point arc. It's going to go from here to here. Again, kind of generally size it, and then make the point coincide with the middle. Add a radius dimension, and that radius dimension was 0.375. 0.375. All right, so now I got the edges. Add a couple of lines to connect those to finish up the hole. And there's a line there to there. Now I've got this shape. All right. So to do this and kind of save you some time and some energy to make this go around in a circle, I'm going to go ahead and use the circular pattern tool. Okay, so you can either do this in your sketch or do this as like a feature. I'm going to try this first off as a circular pattern for the following. So I'm going to try to select all those lines. You know what? I take it back. I'm not going to do it here. Let's go ahead and make this hole first and then pattern it. I think that's going to be the move. So let's try this out. Hit the check. I'm going to go to extrude, choose that shape I just made, and I'm going to select remove. It's going to create a hole instead. And instead of doing it blind, I'm going to go up to next. Okay, that way it's just going to go to the end of the wheel. Hit the check. All right, so now I got one of the spokes, and here's where I'm going to bust out that circular pattern. Okay, so instead of a part pattern, I'm doing a feature, and that feature I'm patterning is that extrude I just made. Axis of pattern is going to be the middle of, so actually I'm going to unhide this sketch. That way I can use this axis right there. Okay, I can already kind of see it doing its thing. Right now it's doing it 4 times. I want 6 total if I look back at my drawing. I need 6 of them, so I'm going to change that instant count to 6. And boom, I've got all the holes set up. Hit the check mark. We're looking good. All right. Okay, last but not least, come back up here. I've got this little peg thing I'm going to create. It's really just a couple of cylinders with a hole through the middle. Okay, so let's go and do one at a time. I think that'll be the easiest. So I'm going to do new sketch, select this front face. I'm going to see where this is exactly. It lines up to the middle. That's going to make it easy. And that middle of that is going to be 0.7 inches away. Come back over here. I'm going to look at this straight on the right side. Let's line this up from the middle, come across. I'm going to generally make that circle. And then let's start adding some dimensions. Again, 0.7 over. So dimension from here to the middle. This value was 0.7. And then let's see what else we got. Next up, it is 0.375 tall. So, you know what? Actually, I think we can go ahead and end that sketch. Might not be the most efficient, but this is one way to do it. I'm going to extrude that entire shape. Now, notice here, if I want to select this edge, it's kind of tricky. Hopefully you can find it. If not, sometimes you just got to make sure you create a section view if you need to. Okay, so I'm going to make this one a blind extrusion. 0.375 was how tall it goes. The next section, make another little peg. Like I said, I'm not sure if this is the most efficient, but this will work. I'm going to sketch on this face now. Make another circle right there. This one is, let's see, the diameter 0.125. Dimension that 0.125. Is that right? Yes. Yes, I believe so. Looks a little bit small. Let me double check one thing. Is this sketch right? Oh, I never dimensioned this one. Sorry. Dimension that one. That one was 0.25. Sorry, I missed that somehow. And then, it's not quite, oh, not quite lined up either. So missed a couple things. Again, I know that because it's still blue. That needs to be horizontal to that. Now it's all black. We're good. All right. Apologies. Coming back, sketch 9, double click on there. That one is all set. Do one more extrusion of this piece. That's going up the size of that 0.125. Okay, I'll just do that blind, 0.125. Okay, and then last but not least, it's got a little hole. The hole diameter is 0.0625. It's going down 0.25. All right, I'm going to do a little sketch on the top here, create a point right in the middle. Okay, notice it created a little box, so I know it's right in the middle. And check mark, I'm going to use the hole tool. Sketch point is the point I just made. It's going to merge to that piece. And it's 0.0625 diameter, 0.25 deep. So I'll go 0.0625. Oops. 0.0625. And it's going down 0.25. And check. We got our wheel. Things are looking good. All right, and one other step here is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate these so that they are all in the right spot. The way I'm going to do this personally is I'm going to use the linear pattern tool. So it's right over here. If you can't find it, remember, you can always use the search tools. Start typing it in. It'll find you. Linear pattern. The part, in this case, a part pattern. Entity to pattern is this wheel. The direction, I'm going to choose any line that kind of follows the way I want to go. In this case, I'm going to choose this bottom line. Right now it's going up towards the front. I'm going to flip the direction of that using this button. And then the distance is the distance between the two holes. I did the math there earlier. If not, you can always check it. 3.5. That puts it right in that spot. We are happy with that. Check. And then if I want them on the other side, I would use a mirror. So mirror, part mirror in this case, I'm going to make them new parts. The entities is both of those wheels. Mirror plane is what cuts it right in the middle. In this case, it's the right plane. And in this case, we are not merging them. We don't want them to add. We want this to be a new part. So then I've got my 4 wheels, hit the check, got everything here. Okay, and again, staying organized, I would at this point go through, select everything we just did for the wheel. Right click, add selection to folder. I'll call that wheels. Hit the check mark. And then I would also, personally, I would probably go through and rename all these parts as well. Okay, so rename that to part 4 was the left front wheel, so on and so forth.